360 Degrees Full Circle is a Kulamani Speak Out, Speak Truth segment. 360 Full Circle is about life-changing moments, events, and stories. What it means to come 360 Full Circle is that we begin at one point, most commonly on the fitra, that is our natural state of being from birth, and we digress, crash, if not burn, or go through so much pain, trial, and turmoil to simply remain on course, though before our derailment or destruction, or after it, we do a 180, right the ship, the righteous path, Asharatu Mustaqim, and with the lived experience, wisdom, and truth of the matter to share with others. If you're a Muslim, it is back to the fitra. If you are not Muslim, it is still in that general direction from which we all came. And inshallah, it leads you there. This is Kulamani, Speak Out, Speak Truth, the 360 Full Circle segment. I'm your host, Mustafa-El Ajala, and our guest today is my comrade Faqih, Brother Ezra, formerly born Lord, a.k.a. Lil C, accompanied by Sister Nekita, his wife, his flower, his queen, and it's an honor to have them both here today. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
This episode is from Born Lord Lil C to Faqih, Allah's slave in most need of his mercy and forgiveness. So let the audience know, who was Little Ezra before Born Lord, before Lil C?
Well, I was born in Chicago, raised, grew up a lot of my adolescent, early teenage years in Danville, Illinois. Lived the meaningful part of my teenage years in D.C. area, Maryland, and later part of my teenage years in Wisconsin. I came to Wisconsin, Milwaukee area. So I'm conglomerate of all of those areas and experiences and people who helped raise and shape it.
Yes. Did you say D.C.?
Yeah, Washington, D.C.
Okay, yeah, I was unaware of that. Okay, so what was your childhood like? What was it like coming up? You know what I'm saying? What, like I say, before Born Lord Lil C, what was your experience like?
I was born, and when I was born, my mother and father were married, so I was born into a household. I had 3 older sisters and myself in the household, and my mother and father. So my household, man, it was happy from that aspect. My father was my hero. My mother was my queen, and so I grew up under that kind of shelter till early adolescence. My father left. He didn't leave in like an abandonment sort of way, but he left. And from that point on, I was back and forth between the both of them. A lot of time with my father, a lot, really, an awful lot, years in my adolescent and teenage years. I was with my father. It kind of grounded me and kept me safe, like I said, because he's my hero. And things I probably was on a good foot until he made a change in his life. He fell down. He succumbed to the drug use. And once he did that, that just shattered my whole foundation. And, I really took it to the streets then. And, what happened when you go that way.
And that kind of leads to the next question. So what and where was the making of Born Lord Lil C?
So, coming up in the city, I was born on the west side. I grew up on the west side of Chicago. And so, it was a Vice Lord community I was born in. And so, I attached myself with that early on, really early on. And the ironic thing about it is that when I went to Danville, went back to Danville, should I say, in my early teenage years, the brothers that I came up with, the brothers I grew up with, the brothers I knew, they was all Vice Lords too. So it was just, for lack of a better phrase, it seemed like it was meant to be. No doubt it was for a purpose. But that's the way I took it. Even at this young age, I took it like that. And so I vested myself in it wholeheartedly. I think that's just the way I'm made. When I love something, I love it unconditionally. Like if I love somebody, friend, family, whatever, there's nothing you can really do to change that. I have to change. In my heart and mind, I have to say, you know what, I'm gonna have to pull back or whatever. But it doesn't really come with strings attached. Like, you don't have to do this for me in order for me to have love for you. If I decide to love you, I'm gonna love you regardless of whether you reciprocate it or not.
Yes, yes. I guess. Okay, what did you think? Well, I mean, obviously you didn't come there alone. You were still a teenager at the time. What drove you or your family, brother, to Milwaukee?
So, like I said, when I was out in D.C., man, that was me and my father was out there.
Okay.
And, and once he started, using drugs, he kind of forced me, because up until that point, I had a regular working class, middle class upbringing. My father had a very good job. He drove trucks, made really, really good money. We lived in a nice community. Everything was good. So as long as he was good, I was good. But once he fell down, things started going bad, and so I had to take over. My father be first to admit, we switched roles. I became the breadwinner. I was the one taking care of it. I was taking care of him. And his woman at the time, she actually was the one who had turned him out, because, like I said, he was driving truck. And so she was at home. We were home together. She was raising me and her daughter. And I remember when she started using. And when my father came, I couldn't wait till he came on. The first time I caught her smoking, I was like, yeah, I know he's going to stand on her when he come home. And when he came home, he didn't. I didn't know he was going to succumb to it, but when he came home, he didn't. And next thing I know, stuff started coming up missing in the house. Bills stopped being paid. I was wearing the same clothes that I've been wearing a year before. So I kind of seen what was happening, man. Like I said, so I took it to the street, and so she jumped up after about a year or so, fainting in the street. She jumped up and ran to Mississippi because she owed people the money and left my father with the bag. He actually was out of town on a trip in his truck. And when he came back, people was like, man, Pearl owed us $2,500. He like, what? So he go to find her. When he find out where she at, he going to find her. And I'm like, man, I'm not following you across the country, following behind no dope fiend, man. You go, you can go. I'm staying right here. And like I said, even though I was young at the time, I was only 14, 15, our roles had reversed. So he wasn't in a position to tell me otherwise. And so he left. I stayed by myself out there in D.C., hustling, running the street, chasing paper out. And I actually came back to the Midwest to visit my mother. Because I started getting money, I thought I was grown. So I came back to the Midwest. My intention was to give my mother some money and then go back to D.C. I got back and she found out what had been going on. I got ready to leave. She like, where you going? I'm like, I'm going back to D.C. She like, well, who? Your daddy ain't out there no more. I'm like, for myself. She's like, you ain't grown. You ain't going nowhere. So I was stuck in Wisconsin. Within a year, I was in jail.
So, actually, I want to ask Sister Nekita this question, or is she driving right now?
She's driving. You want me to relate the question if you want to?
How did you two meet? I mean, you can answer it as well, but I figure, women tend to be a little more accurate than us.
It's funny, too, because we was talking about this yesterday. Her entire family is vice lords. And I know them, and I have a personal relationship with most of them. I mean, overwhelming majority of most of them I knew on a personal basis. We have our own personal ties of love and memories and experience. Her uncle, her cousin, her brother, and me and her never met. Like literally, she said it yesterday. Our lives the best of planners, because maybe if we had met back then, we wouldn't have had a future. Whatever. But I'm talking about it wasn't because she lived somewhere else and she wasn't around it. We literally never saw one another. Like, never passed each other on the street. Never, when I came over to her family house, meet one of her family members. I seen her, none of that. It just the way our lives agreed, we just never physically saw each other. And so, fast forward 7, 8 years later, I come over to her auntie house, like I said, because I got a personal relationship with her family members. Her auntie house and her cousin, one of the brothers I was really close with. I came over there. She was over there. And we seen each other, but I was with somebody, so we didn't talk or nothing like that. Kind of, we noticed each other, but we didn't say nothing to each other. And her cousin, the brother, he decided to play matchmaking. At the time, I wasn't trying. Like I said, I was in a relationship, so I wasn't actively looking at any of that. The first time he brought it to me, like, yeah, man, my cousin, this, that, another, I said, no, I'm good. But he playing matchmaking, so he give her my number, give me hers, on his own fruition. Like, yeah, man, y'all should. And we talked, and then no, matter of fact, either one of us called. And then one day he was with her, and he called me and gave her the phone. And then we talked, a brief conversation or whatever, and we saw each other a few times, man, and we liked each other. Again, we hadn't did nothing. We was just spending time with each other talking, and I liked her, and I felt the level of comfort because actually at the time I met her, this was when I had the responsibility for the whole state of Wisconsin. I had the chief spot, so everything that come with that. So all the responsibility.
Pause a minute. Well, matter of fact, we can come back to that. Go ahead and finish your finish the statement here, and I'm gonna come back to that point there.
All the responsibilities and the weight that come with that was, it was pressing down on me, and she just represented the one person in my life who I felt like didn't want nothing from me and didn't need nothing from me. With the brothers, there was always something going on. I had to fix it, address that, deal with this X, Y, and Z. So she was like the one person who didn't want us. Whenever I was with her, just talking to her, just relax. That was like an island for me. It was a rest haven, literally, mentally and spiritually. It was a rest haven. Eventually, the woman I was with at the time, she got wind of it. It caused a big chaos. She acted in a way that was, totally negative, aggressive, whatever else. I ended up leaving. Her, and me and my wife got together. We were together until I went to jail, and that was probably about a year later. And I went to prison, 20 years. When she was my woman, I knew she was the best woman I ever had. And up until that point in my life, I had all kind of women. I had rich women. I had professional women. I was engaged to a psychologist for like 2 years. And these was good women. I ain't saying they were bad women. They were good women. But even at that age, she was just head and shoulders above simply because the type of person that she was and what she brought to the relationship on every level. But I didn't reciprocate it then. Being young, I didn't reciprocate it, so I didn't appreciate it. By the time I went to jail, I had messed up plenty of times. So when I got locked up, I knew I wasn't going to be coming home anytime soon. I kind of encouraged her to leave, because this going to be a long time. I ain't been keeping it real with you. You deserve better. Just go ahead and live your life.
And pause on that. Go ahead. I was going to say, pause on that point, because I would like some of her input. I know we can't get it right now at this very moment, but this is definitely a part of the conversation dialogue interview that I would like her input on. But let's go back to something you mentioned before, when you had the chief spot in Wisconsin. I remember there was a Milwaukee Magazine article, and I know, for the audience not realizing this is a close friend of mine, this is my comrade, so there's some information that we know personally amongst each other that the audience doesn't know, so I'm keeping that in mind as we continue with this interview and this dialogue. But I think you might recall it. I think it was 2006. We were in Green Bay at the time, BBCI.
Yeah.
And the Milwaukee Magazine had an article that referred to you as being seminal in terms of the vice lord structure in the state of Wisconsin and the development, you know what I'm saying, in any type of real form. But give us a little background about First and Keith. You know what I'm saying? The legend of that deck. For people out there in the audience that don't know what that is, it's in Milwaukee. It's on the east side of Milwaukee. And give us a little background about that. Not just the street legend and all that, but of course the audience might want to know that as well. But also some things that people might not know that's not stereotypical in terms of how you carried yourself out there. I know brothers done talking about how you had some form of an educational program, some required reading. Brothers had to read certain books and things. So share some of that with us.
So, like I said, it goes back to, like I said, the way that I was raised and the way Allah made me and how the love that I give and how it doesn't really require reciprocation. And so the same applied to, obviously, the brothers that I was around in the street. And they became the number one, my priority in my life. Every decision that I made from the age of 7 to the age of 25 was always what was best for Vice Lord. Not what was best for me, not what was best for my family. When my daughter was born when I was 17, not what was best for her, what was best for Vice Lord. Every decision I made. And so when we established First and Keith, we carved out that neighborhood in the middle of Milwaukee City of all people who weren't Vice Lord, people who were on the other side. We carved that out. We decided that we was gonna make that a safe haven for brothers up under the fence. Like, you can come here and you don't have to worry about nothing. You're gonna be safe. You ain't gonna have no drama. And so in order to do that, we had to make a buffer zone around it. And without going into detail, and I say this with a lot of consternation, that we use violence to create that buffer zone, and that by default, reputation came to just don't go down there. People who wasn't one Vice Lord, just don't go down there. Them cats just leave them alone. And so, and because of that reputation, we were able to establish a zone that was just strictly for Vice Lords. And then we were able to go from there and with the intention that I was raised in a household that serviced, that demanded service, community service. My mother set that example. My family, my extended family, have always been people who gave back to the community. So naturally, I took that and I developed that for the Vice Lord. And it was central that not only do we give to one another, but we give back to the community that we claim. If we say this is our block, then we're responsible for it. We're responsible for the physical makeup of it, meaning keeping it clean, making sure it ain't ran down, looking raggedy. We're responsible for the physical safety of the people in it, meaning that if it's something going on in that neighborhood that's a danger to an individual, whether it's a woman or a child, it's our responsibility to take care of it. You ain't got to call the police. Holler at us, we'll take care of it. And so by reputation, by doing that, because there probably weren't any other communities doing those same things, it gave us a hyper spotlight of people knew and understood, like they doing something different down there. We're already different because we were a Vice Lord set in the middle of folk city. Things that we were doing to clean the neighborhood clean up, the book drive. It was a requirement for anybody under the age of 17 to go to school. If you got caught on the deck during school hours, Saturday, you were going to be doing physical labor. You're going to get one of them big old green garbage cans, and you're going to go around every block that we call ourselves controlling, and you're going to pick up every piece of trash. Then it's wintertime, and you're going to shovel snow. So those things kind of set us apart. And by extension, because Milwaukee was the biggest city, because we had the biggest deck, or should I say, the roughest deck, my reputation expanded out for that, and it crossed borderlines. And the brothers like, man, what the brother doing up in there in Milwaukee is just something that we need to mimic all the way around the board. Let's see if we can get this brother in a position where he can share some of that with other brothers. And so once I started making connection with brothers in Racine and brothers in Madison and brothers, they supported No, they didn't have to, but they willingly supported me. They willingly um uh, uh, got on board.
To your leadership, so to speak.
Right, yeah, and it was by default. You know what I'm saying? It was never petitioned for. It was just by default. Like, man, this brother got he has the best vision. He has the capacity to bring it to fruition. We gonna follow this brother because we believe he can take us from where we at to a better place. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I was honored, and to this day, I still am honored by the fact that these brothers chose. It was not by force. Nobody told them they had to do it. They came and said, "Brother, man, whatever you need, we got your back. We recognize you and your leadership, and we want to support you, whatever you need from us." And I think that allowed me to have a little more success. Malcolm said that men are attracted by spirituality, positivity, and they're repulsed by fear. So you can get people to follow you out of fear, but they hate you. So I always kept that in the forefront of my mind and tried to lead through spirituality and positivity. And I must say that, for the overwhelming result was something that I benefited from.
And let me say this, as I mentioned earlier, you know what I'm saying, we done came through the struggle, decades now together. And some of the background you're sharing now, I wasn't even aware of. An example, the experience of the youth coming up, in different cities, D.C., Danville. I knew a little bit about Danville. So it's extraordinary because I know the person you are today, and I know the person even through the struggle you were, to have done that and experienced that at that young age. And what I want to know, because with that said, we didn't have a rule book, we didn't have a blueprint. Of course, when we became acquainted with the Holy Quran, but and even then, your first reading, your first absorbance of it, without, having a true experience of living in an Islamic community or Islamic country, or even the deen, even the deen itself, in terms of our introduction to it, still had to be some maturity there. So, with that said, what were the pitfalls? Obviously, it's not going to be a perfect transition. What were the pitfalls that led you to incarceration? Not at an earlier age, not at an earlier age, but as an adult. So, what year was it? Was it 1997?
Yeah, when I got big, yeah, 97.
So how did you get down that path? We got the positivity going on. So how did the negativity or the negative aspect of your life take over and land you, 20 years of incarceration?
Well, in a nutshell, it was just ignoring Allah's warnings, brother. Allah sends you signs, brother. Allah don't never take you to task for the first time you do something. It's the hadith of the Khalifa Umar when they brought the young man to him who got caught stealing, and he getting ready to get the punishment, and he said, "Man, have mercy on me, this is the first time I ever did it." And Umar said, "You lying. Allah never takes you to task the first time. He always gives you multiple chances." And the young man kind of admitted, like, "Yeah, you're right." Like, that's what it come down to. So all the times before, when I was catching them minor bits, 8 months here, 12 months there, 14 months here, in my mind, I was thinking that I can handle that. First and foremost, I was playing a victim role because I felt like the things you talked about, the positive stuff I was doing, my intentions, the good intentions that I had, the law stood in opposition to that, and they did. They didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that we was doing positive stuff, but they also at the same time had a job to do, to prevent us from doing the negative stuff, and we kind of bled that together. Like they were really trying to lock us up because of the positive stuff we was doing, and maybe that's true. But the negative stuff we was doing gave them the authority and the permission to do that. And so Allah was sending me signs. The very first time I actually went to the county jail, I learned about, I had already knew about Islam. I already knew about Allah. It just wasn't important to me. Not enough to factor into how I lived my life. But once I got set down for just a brief moment, said, get access to the Quran, learn about Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing, Allah be upon him. And that gave me a direction to where it prevented me from doing certain things. Like even now, I can sit here with a clear conscience and say, I've never killed anyone, and I never told anyone to kill anyone. And not only is that saved me, I believe, on a day of judgment, but it also saved me when people with bad intentions came to try to take my life for real. If it was any way, they would have had me. But because I never participated in anything like that, and in fact I discouraged it and I prevented it on many occasions, there was nothing for them to grasp hold to. So they resorted to the lie. That's what the magazine was about. Well, we can't get him in the courtroom, so we just gonna poison the water and dampen his reputation so that he don't get out on parole no time soon. And it worked. It worked. I actually didn't get out for another 11 years. So, but that's really what it was. Had I, and I say this all the time, had I made Islam a priority in my life when I first learned about it, not only would my life have been better, but everybody who depended on me, including them brothers and sisters, their life would have been better too.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
All right, we have Sister Nekita online now. As I alluded to earlier, there were some things I definitely wanted you to chime in on, and as well as get some specifics in terms of your own upbringing. So let the audience know, where were you from, and when did you, if you're not from Milwaukee, migrate to Milwaukee?
I was born in Chicago, Illinois. My father was full-blown Puerto Rican. My mom is black. My father and mom married at an early age and had me. I was an only child. And at the age of 23, my father passed of kidney failure. So my mom then migrated to Milwaukee, Illinois. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where she took me.
Yeah. Okay. And so, what was your upbringing like? I mean, what part of go ahead.
What part of
I was about to ask
Chicago or
Wisconsin? Yeah. I was about to ask what part of the city were you from, Chicago?
We were from South Side on 59th and Honorary.
Okay.
And then my mom did stay on the West Side part of the time as well.
Yes. And so, what year was it when you migrated to Milwaukee?
I was raised by a single black mom who, something along the way happened in her childhood, and she was looking to everything except for Allah, for love. So my mom ended up being addicted to men, alcohol, drugs. So I had a very, very rough upbringing as a child.
Yes. And so what year was it when you migrated to Milwaukee, if you can recall?
Say again, brother, I'm sorry.
Oh, I said, and what year was it when you migrated to Milwaukee, if you can recall?
75. I was 3 years old.
Okay. And so I know you wanted to, me and the brother was speaking, so he said you had a little different version in terms of how you two met. So how did you two meet? Nekita's side of the story.
So, as he stated, everybody, majority, probably 99.9% of my family were Vice Lords. And we lived on Keith, right off the 2nd and Keith. But I was never looking for that. Being brought up rough with my mom, I wanted something different for myself. So I went to a predominantly white school. So I really was never on Keith as much. And I believe that's why we missed each other. I participated in a lot of things in a predominantly white. I went from elementary through high school. And I just think that's why me and Ezra never crossed paths. But after I graduated high school, again, I was looking for something else. So I enrolled in dental assisting school. And my aunt, who he used to frequent her house a lot, I was dropping my son off to go so I could go to school. I went to a community college in Milwaukee, and that's when I saw him there. That was the first time we had ever seen each other.
Okay. So when you met him, who did you meet? I mean, did you meet Ezra? Did you meet Boy and Lord, Little C, or did you meet a combination of both?
I would say a combination of both.
Okay, okay. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you heard some of the ground we covered. Uh, and let me ask this before I get into that, because we already got up to the point of his incarceration. I want some of your input on that as well. But the person you met, what was your impression? What was your impression then? Not now. What was your impression then of him as a person? Character-wise, individual, you name it.
I think what drew me to him was he was so charismatic. He's well spoken. He was nothing like the other vice lords, and majority of them were my family members. Just basically, he was a different individual. I had never met anyone like him before. In the lifestyle that I live, like I said, I went to a predominantly white school. He just was very well spoken. He was very smart, and I think that's what attracted me to him the most.
Okay, okay. And the imprisonment. I mean, we talked about the positivity and the negativity. You know, as you know, me and the brother been knowing each other for decades now, so I know a little bit of the story, as well as similar to my own story in that regard. So, were you aware? I know you're aware of some of the positivity. I mean, you spoke on that just individually, but were you also aware of some of the negativity and how? And did you see that coming? Did you see the imprisonment coming? 20 years of incarceration.
I did not. I've never seen anything bad from Ezra or anything like that. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't know what he was doing. I did, but I thought the positives outweighed the negatives. So I did not see him going to jail for 20 years.
And when you did find out he was incarcerated, I mean, he gave us, and something he let me know as well in the past that, and I made a similar decision in my own life that he did not under any circumstance want you to lose your life or your time while he did his time. And so how did that impact you? That decision he made to kind of, just part ways with you while he did his incarceration?
Well, something also had happened that had already determined my decision that I wouldn't wait for Ezra, and I was hurt. I was mad. I was devastated, and it changed my life in a lot of ways, I believe. Ezra was my first love, so when all those things happened at once, it made me a different person, I believe.
Okay. In the meantime, I mean, that's a lot of time. What was your life like in that meantime? I mean, was he totally obliterated from thought, or, I mean, how did that occur? In the 20 years he was gone, what was your life like?
I became wild. I was looking for the love that I had in Ezra in every way that I could, and I wasn't getting it. So I partied. I did a lot of haram things.
Yes. Okay. But also, I mean, because he's already relayed to me, and of course I'm a little familiar with some of your successes. How did you? I mean, this is a question here. How did you excel, single mother, while so many stuck?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I graduated from dental assisting school with honors. I became a dental assistant and had been a dental assistant for all those years. At one point in time, I contemplated going back to be a hygienist or even a dentist, but being a single mom, at that time, I didn't think there was any way I could do it, so I was a dental assistant. So I provided for my family and pretty much tried to keep my kids on the right path to avoid most of the things that majority of my family went through being a vice lord.
Yes. Another question I have here, because I know this is something I plan on touching base with him about, but we have you on the line now, so I asked you the question because I did plan on following up and ask you the same question. And I know this through him, and and also through the brother Mod's Zalja, Desiree. There's rarely a person I've met who mentions knowing him or even meeting him that has not expressed being positively impacted or honored to have done so. And I've heard the same of you. And so there's a quote from Khalifa Ali, radiallahu anhu, the cousin of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of course his companion, that when a person has a good impression of you, prove it true. So we know that these things come from Allah, but how do you prove it true? I mean, why do the sisters have such a gravitation towards you, and how do you prove that true?
All praise be to Allah. I am still a growing Muslim, learning Muslim, and I just try to live by example of a following Muslim woman, a wife, a sister, a mom, and I just try to do unto others that I want them to do unto me. I try to give anybody advice that no matter my opinion, I try to look to Islam for the correct advice to give them, not my personal opinion or what I would do or say.
Okay, another question I have, and I want to get to the point of, you know what I'm saying, why and when did you take your Shahada? But before that, how did you two meet again the second time, and how was that? How did that occur? And give it to me.
So, my family loves Ezra. They love him, and they always have. And if they had it their way, we would have stayed together forever. My uncle, who Ezra always kept in contact with, knew Ezra was back in Milwaukee, and kind of like my cousin was wanting to play matchmaker and gave me Ezra's number, but it was the wrong number. So me always having love for him, even though the 20 years he went to jail, I was pretty angry and mad. My love for him never went away. And when my uncle gave me his number, I did call, but he never returned my call. And the reason was my uncle had given me the wrong phone number.
Okay.
So Ezra did call me at one time that I was dating someone, and I asked, was he out? And he said no, and I really didn't want to focus my life on him being in jail if he wasn't home. So it kind of went on. Then we finally got in touch with each other and went from there. I met him, and we saw each other, and it was like things had never went away.
Like 20 years never occurred.
Nope.
Okay. Now you said, we got to talk about this. And you said you didn't really want to try to maintain a relationship while he was incarcerated. However, and my brother's not a liar. So my understanding is that your wedding, your nikah, was actually. All right, what happened? Tell us about it. All right.
That was my thought.
First of all, wait a minute, pause. First of all, when you finally did meet again, I mean, we went through, the phone tag and all that. When you finally did meet again, and I know the love was still there. I mean, I know a proposal came, but before the proposal came, what was that discussion like? I mean, when you finally met again?
We talked, and he asked if I would come see him, and I said, sure. And I got all dialed up, of course, and went to see him. And when he got out of the van, I said, oh, my God, this man still looks the same. Being in jail 20 years, I thought he would have aged. He looked exactly the same with muscles.
Straight up.
That was the only difference.
Yeah, straight up.
And he says, he gets in my car and he says, there's a few things I want you to know right off the bat. I am Muslim. I am serious about Islam. I want a wife. And I'm leaving Milwaukee. And I started laughing. And I said, I ain't never getting married again then. So.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the initial appearance, reconnection. So what made you change your mind, and how long did it take you to change your mind? After that meeting, what was the thought churning? Yeah.
you know Ezra yourself, and he's a loving person. And me being the woman that I always have been, I always wanted a man to lead me, but to lead me in the right direction. And 20 years prior to that, I thought I had that in Ezra, but he hadn't found who he was. And most importantly, given his heart to Islam. So when I just watched how different he was, how much love he had for Islam, how much respect he had for himself and it kind of made me sway a little bit. And he kept working on me. And I just kept telling him I had to think about it. And I want to say one of the most important things was, as Muslims, we were not supposed to date or be alone, and we weren't. And when I saw that, that's when I knew he was serious.
Yes. And so he finally proposed. And how was that? And tell us about the wedding. I mean, because, and I'm just going to interject this. I mean, the brother will get a chance to give his own statement on this episode. But it's been stated this was one of the best weddings some of the people ever witnessed. And even though it was under some circumstances which most people wouldn't understand that. So tell us about it.
He proposed, and I still, in my heart, I knew it, but in my mind, I was scared. So I still told him I had to think about it. And one Saturday, he called me because I never used to get to see him on Saturdays. And I had prayed, and Allah is the best of planners, and I said yes. And my husband planned that wedding in a week, probably. And my family came, his family came. Keep in mind now, my husband was incarcerated.
Okay.
I got a dress. Okay. Go ahead, brother. What were you gonna ask?
No. That's one of the parts. I mean, this is one of the beauties of it. He was still incarcerated. And where did it actually take place?
The wedding took place at this factory where they would stop to pick up some of the other incarcerated individuals. And it was a big parking lot, and it was about 30 to 50 people there, family, friends, and everybody just told us that was probably one of the most enjoyable, magical moment weddings that they ever seen. My husband is true when he says when he loved, he loved. He planned it down to us tasting honey, to eating grapes, to me being presented with a Quran. It was just, I couldn't stop crying. Our was there, our sisters were there. Say again? And it was at midnight. I forgot to say that.
Oh, yeah?
It was at night. Yeah, it wasn't in the daytime.
I wasn't aware of that. So, yeah, I mean, that whole little ambiance, I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah, so I've heard the same thing, that it was one of the most memorable weddings that many people have attended. So the question is, okay, you got married, what year was that?
2016.
16?
Yes.
Okay, you hesitate a little bit now, sister. Y'all supposed to know them days better than us. You're supposed to rally that one straight off. So that was 2016, and right now, I mean, you no longer live in Milwaukee. Trying to, got a little time or constraints here. You're in Colorado now, correct?
Correct. We moved to Colorado Springs in 2017. 2017.
Okay. And when did you take your Shahada?
I took my Shahada in 2018.
And why at that particular time, and when was that particular time? My understanding was it during the month of Ramadan?
It was right before Ramadan.
Okay.
My husband had it his way. I would have took my Shahada the day we got married, but I wanted to take my Shahada for myself, and I wanted to take it when I felt it in my heart, because I knew a lot of women who had married Muslim men for the man and took in their shahada. And then when things went wrong with the man, they left Islam. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to learn Islam as much as I can for myself and take my shahada when Allah told me to take my shahada.
Allah makes Muslims, man, do not. Alhamdulillah.
I mean,
yes, sir. Listen, right now, and I will conclude on this because we'll have to pick it up another time. As a matter of fact, we may have enough time so I can get some more input from him and then try to conclude it. But one thing I want to speak about, or get some further feedback about, is you're in Colorado now, and he was telling me how in Milwaukee, you know, you only were able to obtain a certain level of success in your profession. But I understand in Colorado that is, you know what I'm saying, I mean, that has took off. Not to mention, you know what I'm saying, the different, the business ventures you're in right now. So what is the difference you see between Colorado and Colorado Springs, to be exact, and Milwaukee in terms of the different atmosphere, chance for growth and success in your field? What's the difference you see between the two?
Wisconsin is very segregated, and in my opinion, they want to keep minorities at a bay, whatever position or whatever have you that they're at. While I was in Wisconsin, like I said, I was a dental assistant for over 20 years and applied for different positions and all of that and never were chosen. They gave it to people with less experience. They gave it to people with different experience and, of course, who were white. Also in Wisconsin, I wore my hijab. I had not yet converted, but I wore my hijab with my husband when I wasn't at work, but I never wore it at work. And when we moved to Colorado Springs, I started getting serious about Islam, and I started wearing my hijab more, but still not as much as I should. I'm sorry, I was going.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah.
So I went for a job interview, and I told my husband, I said, I want to give Islam a chance. And my husband loves Islam as well as I do, but he has made me a grown Muslim. And he said, if you stand up for Allah, Allah will stand up for you. So I put my hijab on and went to my interview, and alhamdulillah, I got the job. And within a day after I got that position, the owners called me and asked if I wanted to be the director of that clinic. So I know by no means that was nobody but Allah, because I stood up for him and wasn't afraid to hijab and show people that I am Muslim and that I love Islam. And Allah stood up for me by putting me in a better position.
Something that never occurred in Milwaukee. Wow.
Never.
Okay. And let me say this here. We're going to have to conclude for now and let the brother know that, inshallah, we'll pick this back up another time and be able to conclude the episode. But I'll let you in on this note here because I have to, we're under some time constraints right now. Right now, and this is something, he'll get a chance to speak on. You two, you have launched a new business, a trucking business. You're on the road at this very time. So, audience, if there's a little, hiccup or distortion, that's part of the reason why we're doing this episode through the phone. So, what made you also back him, and of course, this is part of your business too, the trucking business, when he made that decision?
We had a few friends who were doing it. Okay. And my husband was having a hard time being a convicted felon. And I just felt like I wanted him to grow, us to grow. And what better way to grow than having your own? You know what's going on with it. And we just made dua and asked Allah for guidance. And here we are, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. You definitely in my dua. Definitely want to see that success. And I know there's much more to come. I mean, me and the brother have some discussions about it. Other brothers that's, showing some interest in terms of some type of networking and collaboration. And inshallah, I had an opportunity to be out there soon. So continue the success. May Allah protect you, keep you safe on the road. And let the brother know that inshallah, I will try back again tomorrow afternoon, and we'll get him on some of these final questions and comments. And thank you for your time. This has been Kulamani, Reach Out, Speak Out, and we'll conclude the session for right now. All right, Brother Faqih, during your incarceration, and it was 20 years, correct?
Yeah.
Your adult incarceration. How was it coming in? And I mean, I know how you came out. I mean, we've even discussed some of that, and I think some of it has even been covered during this episode. But how was it coming in, and at what point was there a turning point for you?
Like you said, if you caught it earlier, I mentioned that I was going back and forth doing them small bits, 8 months here, 12 months here, 14 months there, and I thought it wasn't no big deal. I was young, I can handle it, But when I got caught this time, strange as it may sound, brother, the realization of what was taking place was immediate. And I'm talking about as soon as they put the cuffs on me, I knew I was going to be gone for a long time, and I knew that I had messed up. Because this is what they have been trying to do the whole time, catch me up like that. And so I just, I understood, because the warning signs had been there, man, and I ignored them. Like I said, I always had awareness of Allah, and in my own way, I thought that I loved them, but I really didn't. I thought that, I was, Islamic, if not Muslim, but I wasn't, And so when them cuffs got slapped on me, I recognized that was Allah telling me that this is what it's going to take. They ain't going to listen. You just going to ignore every morning time I send you. So I'm going to have to sit you down,
And what was the crime?
Go ahead.
Pardon me. What was the crime you were arrested for and later convicted of this last time?
Possession of controlled substance with intent to deliver. Cocaine. Okay. Prior, before it was just, like I said, a little revocation here, a pistol, stuff like that. And so this was a big one because I really didn't sell dope on like that. I sold a lot of marijuana, and so I always thought that I wasn't doing harm unless it's too evil. So, that was my mindset. And this time I had cocaine on me. And so I knew that I was in trouble. I knew that I had messed up, man. And I did, you know what I'm saying? And so, I started evaluating it from that perspective. Like had they halted that arrest and said, you know what, we made a mistake, we're gonna let you go. I truly believe that my life would have been in the same direction that it was, because I understood then. I knew that was a lie. It wasn't no scared straight, none of it. This was a lie telling me that this is what it's gonna take for you to understand that this ain't the life I chose for you. I got something different from you planned.
Yeah.
And so it was, like I said, it was almost immediate.
And the question is, 20 years. No doubt it's a serious offense. It's a drug offense. But 20 years for possession and intent to deliver?
Right.
What was it, a kilo? What was it?
No. And that's what I mean. And that's what I meant by this is what they have been meaning to do all along. Because in their mind, they even told me I was in, one time they came and got me and brought me in, and they had this board, and they had all the pictures of all these brothers on the board, all these vice lords on the board, and they was like, my picture at the top. You see it on TV, the stereotypical picture. Yes. My picture at the top. So and so up under me, so and so up under him, and so they thinking like, okay, if you the leader, then you got to be the one moving all the dope. You got to be the plug. You know what I'm saying? Because these guys is having money. These guys is, we know these guys sell a lot of drugs. So if you the leader, then they got to be getting it from you. And that that was how they was approaching me. But I wasn't selling dope. Like I said, I sold a lot of marijuana, but I wasn't selling dope. And so whenever they used to look for me, they used to look for me in the signs of being a drug dealer, dope dealer. But I wasn't, so they could never really catch me. And this time in particular, I was dealing dope, and they caught me. And I knew they was gonna bust my head, and they did. Yeah, it didn't have nothing to do with how much drugs I was selling. It was the fact that they had been waiting on that all along.
Okay, so you incarcerated. What was the total sentence? I mean, I know you did 20 years, but what was
they
the total
gave me 30 years. They gave me 30 years.
So you pretty much did MR, mandatory release date, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're incarcerated, 30-year sentence, and going back to the original question, I guess what I'm trying to get at is how did you start off in terms of how you did your bit, how you did your time, and at what point was a turning point, or were you saying that was also immediate?
I'm saying that was immediate. The turning point was immediate. I already understood that I had messed up, and like I said, prior to that, I had a spiritual foundation, and so even then, when I was running the streets, when I was doing all those things, I would make a lot from time to time. I wasn't regular with my 5-day prayers, but I was pretty regular with 3 or 4 of them on the regular. And whenever I felt stressed, I would make a lot of read. So I talk to a lot of brothers now, and they be like, "Man, you was always on this," but they looking from the outside, so they thinking they don't understand the depth of Islam and the layers of it. So from the outside, they thinking that really ain't nothing changed. I just stopped running the street. They think, "Man, you was always on this. You always was on talking about Allah and Islam," but that was sugarcoat. It wasn't in depth. It didn't really factor into how I lived my life, other than not doing certain things. So when this happened, no understanding that this was Allah speaking to me, I finally began to submit.
Okay, what have you found during incarceration, even outside, but particularly during incarceration, was the most difficult part of maintaining in terms of being on the deen? What were some of the challenges that you saw, whether from administration or the prison body or, old affiliations? What was the most challenging?
As far as being on the deen, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask that. I think that if I was more easily influenced by what other people thought, I probably could say this was difficult and this was difficult. But because of the fact I always been independent and stubborn in my thinking, especially when I felt that I was right, it was just Islam and nothing. So I didn't really have to, navigate like, man, what they gonna think about me? I should probably get back with the brothers or whatever. I didn't have to think that.
Brother Ezra, there's a quote you have that I would like you to kind of expound on the meaning of when you say, because I've heard you say it often, and I've even repeated it myself. You say, what do you mean when you say give Allah or give Islam a chance? What do you mean by that?
So that quote is actually, speaking to myself first and foremost, and as, advice to the brothers that I communicate with on a regular, because that's really what I should have been doing. I never gave Islam a chance, and that's like I said before. Had I done that, had I gave Islam a chance in my life, had I made Islam the deciding factor on what things that I do or don't do, my life and all the people around me, life would have been better. But because I didn't give Islam a chance, my life and all the people who depend on me, life was more difficult. With me out of it, me not contributing, me not being a guide in their life, a leader, father, a son, a husband, a brother, And so Islam is, I say this with all sincerity, and I don't, and it may come off as proselytizing, but Islam is perfect. There is not, I swear by Allah, Allah's plan that he sent down for mankind is Islam. And it's perfect. There is not a situation in my life that I have encountered that Allah didn't already prescribe a solution to. And when I say Allah prescribing a solution, I don't mean I had to go to the scripture and try to figure it out. I had to, read it for myself and try to say what it means to me. I mean that Allah spoke plain, either through his book, the Quran, or through the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. And so, had I been using that as a guideline, I wouldn't have been in none of this stuff, brother. And I had the information. That's the saddest part. That's what Allah was telling me. You don't have to go to prison for 20 years to know the things that you finna learn. But because you don't want to learn them while you're free, I'm gonna set you down. And understanding that, my mother kind of was the one who helped me understand that. Because I was saying to her, when I asked her, I said, I don't understand why, I'm always the one in jail. Like, man, I'm a good dude, man. I care about people. I try to help as much as I can. I don't cross people out, man. I don't do harm to people. I know cats who do all of that stuff. These some of the foulest individuals in the world. They don't never go to jail. And she said, because God ain't going to let you get away with doing wrong. Because he got something better planned for you. She said, men of God always find themselves where they remember him most. And until you can remember God out here the way you remember in jail, you're going to always be locked up. And that wisdom set the tone for the rest of my bit.
Alhamdulillah. And I know, that kind of, I think, answers this next question, which is, speaking to your younger self, what part of him do you tell him to change? What part to maintain, or what do you tell him to do differently? I think that kind of answers that question.
It does. Give Islam a chance.
Islam a chance, yeah. You mentioned your mother, definitely a blessing. And I remember you mentioned your father earlier in this episode being your hero, or something I know and that the audience doesn't know at this time. You have had a chance to reconnect and rekindle that relationship, and even been on the road with him, with your trucking business. So how has that been? How has that, rebuilding that relationship with Pops, man?
It's been good, man. It started while I was locked up, and unfortunately he ended up locked up too. He did like 9 years in the Fed. So we communicated that whole time, and he got out about a year before I did. And he went out to Colorado. So when we moved out there, he actually drove back to Wisconsin, and we packed up our car, our house, and hooked the car up to the back of the truck. He drove the truck out here. So out to Colorado. So he brought us out here, and we talk almost every day. I see him almost every day, probably not every day, but I do see him 3-4 times a week. We spend time together, so it's been a blessing, no doubt.
Yes, alhamdulillah. And let me say this here, and this is something I mentioned to Sister Nekita. I've rarely met a person that mentions knowing you, meeting you, that has not expressed being positively impacted or honored to have done so. And I mentioned the same thing to her, this saying attributed to Khalifa Ali, radiallahu anhu, the cousin, companion of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'm paraphrasing the quote, and that is, when a person has a good impression of you, prove it true. And so we know everything comes only from Allah, but what do you do to prove it true?
First and foremost, like you said, praise be to Allah. Any good that people see in me, it's just Allah being merciful to me and covering up my fault. And that's all it is, And so, but at the same time, I try to be sincere as I can, and even when I fail, even when I make mistakes, it's with sincerity. And so I think that, people can pick up on that. People pick up on that. I genuinely, when I give advice, I do it with sincerity, whether it's good, right, or wrong. I will never sincerely misguide somebody. And when I extend myself to a person with it's with sincerity. And so I think that, that's the reward for that, is that, people have a good impression of me. And again, I thank Allah for, and the honor is mine. I thank Allah for, giving me favor to the point where people see the best of me and not the worst of me. And my prayer to Allah on a daily basis that that He make me as people see me, and not as they think and not as I really am.
Yes, yes. And let me say this here, for the audience listening, because this segment is 360 full circle, and you can listen to the trailer again to understand what it's about. But the title itself implies the nature of it, and we're talking to a person here. Again, I mentioned my comrade, but he's told you his story, incarcerated, off and on, several years, including a 20-year stretch. And something the audience also doesn't know, but I'm going to mention here. The brother's not going to sing his own praise. All praise be to Allah for both of us. But you go from incarceration, moving to Colorado, becoming a central part of the Islamic community there. And I remember once upon a time you told me that you were the person that was assigned to open the Masjid. What was that about?
Yeah. We just, you have, especially during COVID and stuff like that, you had a Masjid closed. And so I have, one of several other brothers who have access to the Masjid and security code, get in and out whenever. But I think you're talking about having being like the community liaison. Whenever they have like interfaith events going on, and they have a lot of them out here where they did before COVID. The president would always call on me, to represent the community, and so I would be meeting with a lot of people from different faiths to have all kind of fundraisers and stuff like that, and doing a lot of good in the community. That I really was proud to be not only be Muslim but to represent the Muslim community in that capacity.
Yes, alhamdulillah. And actually, I was referring to the first, but the second, it's all stated to underline the point that, you can have someone come from the lowest of low, penitentiary, include doing solitary confinement time. These are things I know, so I'm sharing with the audience without you having to give your own testimony about it. And you come from that to having the keys, pretty much, the code to the Masjid, and being the person that they feel trustworthy and a beautiful representation enough for the community to be the liaison for other faiths, for interaction with other faiths. So that is 360 full circle.
And
that is coming, from the street, from the penitentiary to where you are today. And I told you this before, so I'm kind of speaking now for the audience to hear me. I believe it's 3 ingredients, because I met and stayed in contact with many brothers who've been incarcerated. For the audience that doesn't know, I'm currently incarcerated. So I'm trying to get there where they are. But I see 3 ingredients for those brothers that stay out there and never come back, and not only never come back, but attain success. That is 1, never abandon your relationship with Allah, Islam for us. 2, maintaining gainful employment. And 3, getting a nice zawja. The right zawja by your side. Marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Relationship with Allah, maintaining employment, and getting married. Because if we're men, we have mentally needs. So if you're not going to find your wife, then what are you going to be doing? And there's all other type of problems that come along with that. So
no question about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, ain't no question about it. I agree 100%. I think that those are the pillars in order to live right. I know brothers who got 2 or 3, and in whatever combination, and in each one of them, they have they got issues that they have to deal with. And I'm not saying that I don't. You talk to my wife, she knows me better than anybody. She can tell you some of my issues are. But what I'm saying is that a lot of the problems that they face, a lot of problems that people around me that I see them facing, I haven't dealt with that. And I think it's because of the thing, first and foremost, my relationship with Allah. Throughout the 20 years of my incarceration, I prepared. I heard Imam Siraj get some advice for it. He said, work as if everything, he said, pray as if everything depends on Allah. And it does. And work as if everything depends on you, even though you know it don't. And that's what I did. You know what I'm saying? When I was locked up, my prayer was that Allah make it easy for me, that the obstacles that I thought that I would face, whether it was employment, whether it was social stigmatization, whether it was finding a wife, whether it was overcoming my desire to do things that was negative. I asked him to make it easy for me, but I expected for those things to be difficult just because, you know, I had made it that way. A lot of the problems that I was going to face was due to my past and what I had did to shape that. But in his mercy, he answered that prayer. And for the most part, like I said, I haven't faced a lot of the things that a lot of people face coming out of prison, not because I'm smarter than them, but because, you know, first and foremost, I made prayer. And second of all, I was able to strategize ahead of time. Okay, if I face this problem, this is how I'm overcoming. If I face this problem, this is how I'm overcoming. You know, and so I had a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C for all the struggles that I thought I was going to face. And many of them didn't materialize, but for the ones that did, I was able to maneuver around them because I had planned, prayed, and planned for
it. Yeah, yeah. And I know, I mean, as you commented earlier when we was having this conversation about giving Allah a chance, giving Islam a chance, each one of those plans, without you having to say it, I hope the audience understand it's implied, each one of those plans included, you know what I'm saying, Allah's criteria.
Yeah,
the Quran, the Sunnah. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. All right, man, listen, it's been beautiful. It's been a blessing. As you know, we still have some time constraints for the audience. Once again, this has been a 364 Circle segment. This is Kulamani. Speak out, speak truth, and the truth has been spoken. So reach out and speak out.